or to anybody who registered, I will be sending this. So we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you everybody for being here today. I am Allison Schreier and I'm with Zinnia. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, just briefly, my husband had frontotemporal dementia. I shifted into a career around dementia education, including a stint at the University of Washington. And along the way, got involved with some other co-founders. Bill is on the call today to create Zinnia, which is a streaming service for people who are, it's content that is intentionally digestible by and engaging for people who are living with dementia. Caregivers use it as a tool to help reduce everybody's stress. Our thesis in general is if they're happy, I'm happy. So we're about trying to help everybody have a better day through the use of our videos. So I am going to go ahead and let Janice Bays introduce herself and tell us a little bit about who she is and why she's here and what we're going to be learning about today. As already stated, for those of you who have just arrived, we are recording this and it will be made available to everybody who registered for today's session. I do want to say, so that I don't forget at the end, that our next session will be Dr. Natalie Edmonds, who is the Dementia Careblazer. She's coming out with a new book, and she will be joining us to talk about the top things that she thinks everybody needs to know if they're a dementia family caregiver. And before the session is over, I will pop a link to that registration into our chat. Without any further ado, Janice, welcome. Oh,
I am going to start out by sharing my screen so that we have something lovely. Whoops. I'm going to do this again because I need to be sure that I turn on the audio. And that just really, okay, I'm sharing my sound. We are good. Okay. I think. Okay. Share. Yes. Voila. So my name is Jan Bays, and I am so pleased to be able to join you all today to talk a little bit about anosognosia. I'm here as a representative of the Dementia Action Alliance, which is a group that I love and have been involved with for some time. So I'm going to start out with telling you a little bit about the Dementia Action Alliance, and perhaps you'd like to get more involved with us. And that will lead to how I got involved with anosognosia. So this is me. I'm a history of being a family care partner. I'm not doing that right now, but my mother died of dementia. My mother-in-law lived with dementia for a long time. My father lived with some other challenges for a long time. I'm an educator about many things related to dementia, as is Allison. I'm the past board chair of the Dementia Action Alliance, and I'm the chair of the Optimizing Wellbeing Work Group for the Dementia Action Alliance. And it's actually the through the Optimizing Wellbeing Work Group that our research, our exploration into anosognosia began 3 years ago. One of our members, who is from San Francisco, who is a physical therapist and a fiduciary, brought to the group that she was encountering anosognosia, and really it was really affecting people that she was interacting with in the community, and it was so misunderstood. And so we developed a subcommittee to study anosognosia and how it affected individuals living with dementia. I am also the past director of program development and education for a very special community. It was a relationship based intergenerational community that had assisted living that specialized in memory care. And through that experience, we were able to put into practice many of the theories, many of the practices of the Dementia Action Alliance and the Eden Alternative. And then professionally, my background is that of a physical therapist. So, very briefly, that is me. And this is a few words about the Dementia Action Alliance. The Dementia Action Alliance is a national organization of individuals living with dementia, care partners, and professionals whose focus is advocacy, education, and support for living well with dementia. The distinguishing thing about the Dementia Action Alliance is that individuals living with dementia are involved in everything that we do in all different levels. Recently, over the last year, we have become an outreach of the Eden Alternative. Our organizations were very closely associated, and we decided that for the Dementia Action Alliance, the best way for us to expand our outreach to other people was to join a partner who had a broader scope. And so we've done that over the past year. You can learn more about Dementia Action Alliance at our website, daanow.org. I want to tell you about one of the things that has been a big project for the Dementia Action Alliance, and that is this manual called Pathways to Wellbeing with Dementia. It's a thick book. See if I can get it going. It's like this thick. It's kind of the Dr. Spock for living well with dementia. And as I told you, everything about the Dementia Action Alliance, all of our projects are built around the voice of individuals who are experiencing dementia. And that's the way this manual has been put together. It is created by individuals living with dementia, professional care partners, and personal care partners, and it covers everything that you might want to know about dementia. It also is designed so that it's easy for individuals with dementia to use themselves. The distinguishing factor is that people living with dementia, some of them are on the front of the manual there, are individuals living with dementia and their care partners who tell about their own experiences in every different aspect of the manual. So I encourage you to be curious and get this manual. It's free on our website. If you want a printed copy, you do need to pay for the printing and the mailing to you, but the online version you can download for free. One of the reasons I want to tell you about this is there's some good resources about anosognosia. There's an article on anosognosia on page 61, and you will not, unfortunately, find that information in the index of the manual. And so that page 61 is important if you want to read it, and I strongly encourage you to read that. On our website, Dr. Susan Weary has also done a wonderful podcast about anosognosia diagnosis with some of our members. So I invite you to take advantage of this and some of the other resources that the Dementia Action Alliance has that may help you improve your journey. Exploring Dementia, Nothing About Us Without Us is our DAA educational series. And what is different about this educational series is that we look at topics that are interesting to people living with dementia from the perspective of individuals living with dementia. And that's what this little session today will be. This information that I'm sharing with you today, I used with a friend of mine, Ruth Minima, at the Eaton Alternative Conference last March. It's abbreviated, but we do this. One of the other things that we do are caring conversations. And if you're interested in learning more about anosognosia, we have a caring conversation for individuals living with dementia and their personal care partners every other month. And there'll be one in July on the third Wednesday. And each one of them is different because we talk a little bit about anosognosia, which will be similar to what we're doing today, but then people share their own experiences. So with that, we're going to delve into anosognosia, and understanding is the beginning. I'm going to start out with a brief tutorial, some information about anosognosia, and then we're going to have some lived experience examples through some videos. It's important that we talk about anosognosia because, as Allison said, it's a very, very common thing for individuals living with dementia. 60 to 80% of people living with dementia experience anosognosia. So it's not so much an instance of if you're going to experience anosognosia, but when you're going to do it in some form or another. And what we're going to find out today is that anosognosia can present in many different ways. We're only going to be speaking about anosognosia as it applies to dementia. So we started talking about this about 3 years ago, and when we started talking about anosognosia, it was not a word that you heard often, but over the past year or so, we're hearing it more and more often. And I think that the poll that Allison took at the beginning of our session today is representative of that, which is a good thing. One of the things that is important to understand about anosognosia is that it is often an early sign of dementia. People with mild cognitive impairment will experience anosognosia. And when I talk to some of my friends with dementia who have anosognosia, and they look back, they think, oh my goodness, I think I had anosognosia before it even occurred to me that I had any cognitive change. So it may be an early sign. We want to start out with how to say anosognosia, because that seems to be a real barrier. And my friend Lisa McCarthy, who is the one brought anosognosia to as a topic to our Dementia Action Alliance group, says it's got to have a name. And that's what we found out when we started talking about it, that once it has a name and we're comfortable with the name, it helps us a lot. So let's have everybody say that together. Say it together. Anosognosia. It rhymes with ambrosia. Try anosognosia. So if you take away nothing else today, you will know how to say that crazy word with too many O's. Anosognosia. What is it? Anosognosia is a mismatch between one's perception and one's actual ability. It's a lack of awareness, it's a lack of insight. So it can either be a lack of awareness and a lack of impairment, insight, an impairment in insight, or it can be an either one or. Uh, but the important thing for us to recognize is that it's caused by changes in the brain. It's caused by actual physical changes in the brain, chemical changes in the way things connect up. As important as what anosognosia is what it is not, because there's a lot of blaming that gets involved with anosognosia. It is not lying. It is not denial. It is not attention seeking. It's not manipulation, nor is it delusions or psychosis. It is an actual symptom of that is caused by physical changes in the brain. Now, a lot of times when I've read about anosognosia, I'll see that it's been equated with denial, and it is not the same thing. Denial is a rejection of reality and avoidance because you're just not quite ready to accept what really is. With anosognosia, there is a complete inability to recognize the reality. So it is not a rejection. The person just doesn't see the world the same way as others. That's complicated enough, but it gets more complicated because anosognosia isn't always complete. It can be complete or it can be partial, and it can ebb and flow. So a person might experience anosognosia in the morning, but not in the evening. It can affect some abilities or it can affect all abilities. And you'll see some real illustrations of this when we see our videos that we're going to watch in the first few minutes. What we found as we started talking to individuals who were experiencing anosognosia, that this ebbing and flowing is a really important aspect that can help individuals living with dementia often understand what's happening with them and to make some accommodations to deal with this crazy symptom a little better. The lack of awareness or insight can look like this. People can make unnecessary, dangerous choices like not taking their medication, suspicion, because I always put the keys in this container. So someone must have taken them if they're not there. Predictability, and avoidable injuries and distrust. And this distrust is one that's really an important one that affects the person's well-being. The lack of awareness or insight may be sounding like, I'm okay, I don't have dementia, I can drive, I don't need help. This is an important one. It often creates negative emotions. It creates fear, it creates anger, anxiety, conflict, confusion, distress, both for the individuals living with anosognosia and for their companions. I think that the relationship piece is a really important one for us. And if we begin to understand what anosognosia is, it helps a lot. So this is a brief summary. I told you this part was going to be a quickie. Anosognosia is a mismatch between perception and actual functional abilities. It's a common symptom of dementia or mild cognitive impairment. It can be complete or it can be partial. It can affect any or all of the senses. It ebbs and flows at times, sometimes. It creates psychological distress. That one is pretty constant. It impairs decision making and safety awareness, and it challenges relationships. So that's a quickie. These are the kind of things that you need to know before we jump into listening about people's actual experiences. And that's what we're going to do now, if that's okay with everyone. And then we'll have time for some discussions after these videos. Okay. This first video is my friend Monica, and Monica is living with mild cognitive impairment, but when she speaks of anosognosia, she's actually speaking as a care partner because she's a care partner for a mother.
So I have a couple of examples. The first one is dealing with my mother, and she has frontotemporal dementia. And so we were getting ready to go out of town, and her luggage was packed. And so I told her I was going to kind of just check it and make sure she had everything. And she was bothered by me saying that. So didn't want to argue. I just left it alone. So we got to our destination, and she had lots of underclothes, and she had shorts, and this was December. So I was like, oh no. So we had to go shopping, but and I really thought that she was just being defiant when she didn't want me to check the bag. But later on, when I learned about anosognosia, I said, well, that's probably really what was going on. She probably really thought that she was capable of packing independently. And, you know, she's at a point in her dementia where she's not and is just not aware of it. Um, that is my first example. My second example is there was an older guy in one of my dementia support groups, and we met every week. And one day we were just kind of discussing our symptoms and stuff, and the guy said, "Well, I don't have any problems like that. I have some sisters that have that problem, but not me." And that's when I realized that even though he was getting help to get onto a dementia support group, he was totally unaware that he was there because he has dementia. Um, I had never heard of that before. I didn't know it was really possible for somebody to be completely unaware until I learned about anosognosia.
I'm going to pause us for
So
just a
my
second, Jan. There are a few people in the chat who are saying that they can't really hear the audio. Wondering if they can. It's definitely lower than your speaking voice. So I don't know if it's possible for you to turn up your volume.
I think I have it up all the way.
Okay, then what we can do is capture, we'll see if some of the others are maybe a higher level than this one, and we will at least capture the transcript. So I would say for people who, an option is to turn on closed caption. If you're able to do that in Zoom, I will capture the transcripts and I will share those in the email that I send. So I apologize. We did a tech check earlier, but I didn't notice that it was a lower volume. So, um, and to turn on your closed caption, for those of you who are less familiar with Zoom, there is, in my case, I have to, at the bottom of my screen, click on the More button, which has three little dots. And then there's a little box that says Show Captions. And then the captions start showing up on my screen so that I see everything that is said. So apologies for the inconvenience. What we've learned as dementia caregivers is to be flexible. So we'll do the best that we can with that.
Thank you for the workaround, Allison. I'm so sorry that you couldn't hear Monica's story, and I hope you'll be able to hear the others. She has two examples that she talks about that are great, really important applications. The first one is her mother, who was packing for a trip, didn't want her help, got there, and she had all the wrong things. And it kind of irritated Monica that she had not accepted her help in packing and got there with only underwear and shorts in the middle of the winter. And when she learned about anosognosia, she realized that mother wasn't trying to be difficult, that she really thought she had done it right. And then she has another example where she was at a meeting and there was a gentleman who had experienced complete anosognosia and didn't realize they had dementia. Okay, well, we're going to go
That
on to the
summary
next
was,
one, and
your
hopefully
summary was
this one
perfect.
is better.
Yeah, thank you for the summary. I really appreciated that.
Okay.
I want to share my experience with anosognosia. For me, primarily, it's had a lot to do with verbal communication and understanding verbal communication. I live with my wife, who is my care partner, and we converse a lot. I was not hearing the words that she was speaking. I was coming up with different words in my mind. And so that led to a lot of confusion. She'd ask me to bring her a glass of water, and I'd bring her a paper and a pencil or something like that, because that's what I thought she said. And I would bet my life on it. I was sure that I was right and she was wrong all the time, every time that it happened. And it really led to some difficult experiences in our relationship. Severe arguments, going to bed at night not speaking to each other, walking on eggshells constantly, Definitely not a healthy situation for either of us. So at that time, I didn't know anything about anosognosia. So I just thought that she was misspeaking and I was hearing her correctly, and it was her fault and not mine. What else is a guy supposed to think? So um, then I heard about anosognosia through the Dementia Action Alliance, and I said, I wonder if that could be the explanation to these problems that we're having with communication. So I decided just to take her at her word, and if I misunderstood what she said, I would ask her to explain it again. Um, and then I would realize, and yeah, I didn't hear her right. So, I'm the guy with the dementia, not her. I've got the cognition problems, not her. So is it likely she's misspeaking all the time, or is it more likely that I'm not hearing her correctly and coming up with my own words? So that's my approach that I'm taking now. I believe what she says she said, and I try to repeat things back to her that I have heard. That way we can address any kind of issues right up front. If I've heard her wrong, then we can iron it out right then and there. It's a lot easier to do when you're texting or emailing because you can ask back. But when you're speaking verbally, you just think you got it all. So that's been my experience, and it's been, like I said, it was really tender for a while, creating a lot of problems in our relationship. And since I've discovered what was causing it, we've been able to avoid those situations completely, and I'm a lot happier, and so is she.
I can't see the chat. Did we do better with that one?
We didn't. So, oh, Kathy says yes. I think that people who are able to turn up their own volume, who are able to use closed captions, are
Some.
great. But I think that it
Mhm.
would be helpful, perhaps, if once again you just gave us a brief summary of what our
I
guest was
will.
saying.
Yeah. Jack's message is so important. Jack is living with frontal temporal dementia, and he has a very specific kind of anosognosia that affects his communication and his hearing and listening. And he was misunderstanding what his wife was asking him to do, and it was creating a lot of conflict for them because, oh, she would ask for a drink of water when he got up to switch the laundry, and he thought that she just wanted him to switch the laundry. And you know how people will do, they would argue back and forth. You said, I didn't say, kind of thing. And they were in conflict a lot. Once he understood what anosognosia is, and his wife understood what anosognosia is, they realized that this is what was happening. Jack wasn't intentionally not bringing the glass of water, and Jack was mishearing what Susan was saying. And so they actually, and this was so important for those people that things ebb and flow, or for people who have anosognosia that affects one aspect of their lives, they put into place some compensatory strategies. So he'll repeat what Susan asks him to do, and they'll talk about it and write it down, or those kinds of things, so that they've actually been able to adjust the way that they communicate, and it's really helped their relationship, which is really super important, and I think has applications in many instances.
Jan, I know I want you to go on to the next one, but I just want to summarize uh, what I just learned from you, which I think is really amazing, is not just that, okay, so uh, Jack's brain was preventing him from hearing accurately what his wife has asked. Okay, so
Mhm.
two things happened. One is that he and his wife both recognized that that was actually the problem, right? It wasn't about hearing aids. It wasn't about
Mhm.
willfulness. So that was number one. And number two, I love the way that they managed that, which is that if, for instance, she said, I would like a glass of water, and he would say, oh, okay, he would repeat back, you want me to get you a glass of water? So that she was able to say, no, I just want you to switch the laundry. So they both were clear about what the communication was. And I can see how this could apply in many cases in relationships, even where it is a hearing loss issue or some kind of attention deficit issue. So that's a great coping mechanism.
Absolutely. And that's what we found as we started talking about talking with people living with anosognosia about anosognosia. You know, as a physical therapist, I learned about anosognosia when I was going to school. And it affecting people with strokes was the main diagnosis that we learned about this in. But and Susan Weary, when she did the podcast, and I started talking with her about our whole discovery here with anosognosia as it applies to individuals living with dementia, was that wow, we never talked to people who were experiencing anosognosia about this before. We talked about them, and that's what's been so educational about this whole project. We've learned so much from those individuals who actually have experienced anosognosia. So this next example is a very different one. This example is Ginger, and she's living with mild cognitive impairment. One of the things that is often affected for people living with anosognosia is their financial status, because people will not realize that they can't manage their finances, and they can have devastating results, or they can become victims of scams. So this is Ginger's.
Hi, I'm Ginger from Northern California, and I am a retired speech language pathologist who had to stop because of encroaching dementia. And I'm here to talk about the financial aspect of what happened to me and my family and how disastrous it was. And it was because of anosognosia, which is what this program's about. So I can tell you that I didn't realize at the point that had this condition, not a disease, it's a condition that caused so much grief with my family, so much misunderstanding, bad feelings. Financial aspect was horrifying because I was making decisions that were just contrary to what I had in financially. And like, for instance, I had a reverse mortgage thing that I signed up for in error, should not have been allowed for a person with brain change like I had. And I, even as a speech pathologist, as a clinician, should have known better, but I didn't realize I was suffering from this disastrous condition.
Ginger speaks about her financial situation related to anosognosia. And what happened to her was that she got a reverse mortgage. And she started thinking, this is really, really wonderful. I have all of this money to spend, and she spent it all. And she would get online and she would buy a pink cat bed, and she'd think, well, maybe I'll want a lavender one and a blue one also. And she went through her money and actually lost her home, and and it created a lot of anger with her family until she was able to sort all of this out. But it was all because I mean, she's a competent person. She knew that she was a competent person. She was a speech and language pathologist who had worked until recently, but she didn't understand this anosognosia piece. And it was devastating for her and her family. And we want people to know about it. So Ginger wants people to know about this so that others won't have that same experience. Okay. I have one more to share with you. And this is my friend Steve, who actually lives in the same town that I live in. Uh, Steve is suffering, has Alzheimer's disease and also vascular dementia. And he is on the advisory board for the Dementia Action Alliance and is just an amazing advocate and educator about living with dementia.
I also experience verbal communication type anosognosia combined with other things. And I have the difficulty of being hard of hearing. I wear hearing aids. And I know that I'm not hearing everything. But as Jack described it, I also have a complete misunderstanding, totally different words that I hear my wife say than she said, and that does create quite a problem. And that gets into what one of my more serious issues with anosognosia is not. I recognize that um, I have a very bad gait. I've got some health issues, and I trip a lot. I fall a lot, and I'm unstable. And I don't like being that way, but that is. And so I went to go get the mail, and I crossed the street, and there was a large dump truck. It was way down, about a block or so down, but he started back, and I thought I could cross the street back safely. And so I was walking at a fairly brisk pace, and it seemed like he put the hammer down and just was racing this big dump truck racing right at me. And I looked at him just in shock and started, going like that. Slow down. The speed limit where I am is 30 miles an hour. And many of these dump trucks will go 55 miles an hour. And so as I continued to try to cross with him doing that, him and his friend wave at me like they're saying hi as they zoom right by me. They came probably within about a foot of hitting me, and the wind combined with my being startled, I went tumbling and fell down. Now, the thing is that I knew in advance that I have problems with this, and yet I still crossed the street. And the other problem I have with gait is that I know that I have depth perception problems and issues with that. And so I know I shouldn't do things, and yet I'll lay things right in the path of where I'm going to walk. And I will do that. And my wife says, Steve, don't do that. You need to move that. And I say, yeah, I know. I'll forget. I've got dementia. And then I go to step over it and I trip and fall. And it's, I'm not denying that I have the problem. I literally, it just seems too simple for me, that yes, I know that I'll be very careful. And the other thing is that I also don't drive anymore. And that's because of my spatial recognition of space and where things are. And my wife will park the car, and she starts to go in. She says, "Oh, I didn't get that straight enough." And I'll comment just right off the top of my head, "I can move it for you real quick." And she, no, no, no. And so I'm, even backing the car up, which she's not real good at backing up. I see myself as doing that really easily. And I do have problems. I do run into things. So that's my experience with anosognosia.
So Steve gives us a lot of different examples of his experiences with anosognosia. The two big ones that I take away from his story is safety awareness, uh, because he has falls a lot, And this is one as a physical therapist that was always a big concern for us, is that people would make decisions that would cause them physical injury. The other thing is that Steve's example is not a misperception that he has dementia or that he has a balance problem or that he has a driving problem, but a misperception with the insight involved. He doesn't have the insight as to what that means. And there again, he has the ebb and flow characteristic, because he can talk about this and it's very rational to him that he shouldn't charge across the street because he can't walk fast enough and he's not steady. But at the moment, he doesn't recognize that.
I also experienced.
Yeah. So those are my examples for you. I wondered if we would like to talk a few minutes about your experiences or what you think about those examples. What do you think about anosognosia? And I do have one other little brief video to show you, if we have time, since we're not getting, some people are getting the sound though, so I think it would be worthwhile. Any comments, anything anyone wants to say about what you've heard today or your experiences with anosognosia?
Jan, do you want to stop the share for a second so we could see?
Oh, yes, let's do that.
Thanks. And we did have a question, which is was the difference between aphasia and anosognosia. I can see why that could be confusing for people. And I don't know if you want to.
Yes, so aphasia is a speech and language problem where the language center of the brain is not working correctly, and so people can misunderstand and speak incorrectly. Whereas with anosognosia, it's a perception. It affects a different part of the brain and probably a different way too. But it's a recognition of one's abilities and or the lack of recognition of one's abilities or the insight related to that.
Thank you. And Jan, I have a question. The people, so Ginger, for instance, Steve, they seemed to have this ability, like this look back ability. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that I did all of this stuff with my finances. And it was because I didn't recognize that there was a problem. But there seems to be this recognition that and is that there was a problem and that maybe they're susceptible to having it be a problem again. So is this what you're talking about with the ebb and flow? That people are sort of like, because I'm sure that Ginger's family was like, gee, what are you doing? You're spending all your money. And I don't know if there was a point where she was like, no, I'm not. I'm fine. I've got this thing all sorted out. So what caused her to then be like, oh, okay, there's actually a problem? Because I think the thing that some people on the call might be wondering is, okay, so now do I just need to say to my loved one, hey, I've got it all sorted out. You have anosognosia. Like, are they going to say, oh, okay, well then I do have dementia. I just don't know I have dementia. Like, how does this translate into action in that way?
That's a really good question, Allison, and that's one of the real puzzles with anosognosia, or the real challenges with anosognosia. Um, uh, all of the people who spoke to us have anosognosia that ebbs and flows, or or a partial anosognosia. It affects some senses and not the other senses. The last example that I have to show you, it affects this person's sense of touch and feeling. Well, I never proved to me that anosognosia could be that specific until we started looking at that with individuals living with dementia. And it may not be the case with in other instances, but that's what we found from our individuals who are living with dementia, that it can have that ebb and flowing characteristic, but it doesn't always have ebb and flowing characteristics. If it does, then it really, really is helpful because the person can step back and can make those adjustments. But if it's a complete anosognosia, you're dealing with something that's very, very different. However, Jack and Steve. Well, all of the folks that you've heard from so far, there are two things that are constant. Um, uh, Anosognosia has affected their relationships in every instance, even though it's an ebb and flowing kind of thing. Although Monica's examples were not ebb and flowing. Her mother's doesn't ebb and flow. She has anosognosia all the time, as did the gentleman on her call. But the other thing is how important it is for care partners to understand. Jack and Steve both say, so these are the people that we need to reach. My care partner needs to understand that I have anosognosia, that I'm not being difficult, that I'm not in denial, and it helps them understand me. So those are the two important pieces. So if you're the person that you're dealing with has anosognosia and it's a complete anosognosia, it is useless to argue with them. It's useless to correct them because that's not going to help you. You'll be right, but you won't solve the problem.
Yeah. So Rosemary says how to deal with anger or negativity in those experiencing anosognosia as a caregiver. Um, and what I'm hearing you say is that it's this like, okay, this is what we've got. And how am I going to be with it rather than pushing back against it?
Exactly, and that's why we labeled this, we named this understanding anosognosia. Understanding is the beginning because we have to understand it first. Now our group is working on, oh my, yes, so hard, is working on, well, what's the best way to support individuals living with dementia? And there are a lot of there are safety things that you can put, strategies that you can put in place. The heart of it, we're finding as we talk to individuals, is that relationship, is to develop a trusting relationship early on, uh, uh, as a basis for communication.
You, thank you for that. And Danny asks that how does the doctor diagnose this? How hard is it to diagnose? And I'm sure that there are others on the call who are thinking like, okay, so 60 to 80%. Am I in the like 20% that is just in denial? How do we make that determination? And does it matter?
Yeah. So it is kind of tricky to uh, diagnose anosognosia. Essentially, you need to turn to the functional people like OTs and PTs who can assess. Well, this is what the individual is able to do. Is what they're talking about. And what they think they are able to do. Does it match it up? Um, with Minima and I had this discussion just last week about this challenge of, well, is it anosognosia or is it denial or is it something else? And we came to the conclusion is that in the real functional situation, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. We are dealing with the instance in place, and you need that trusting relationship. You need that loving support. If a person is in denial rather than anosognosia, it's still not going to do any good to correct them. So, So it's like, what can we do to be supportive and hold on to relationships and to support the well-being of both the individual living with the diagnosis and the care partner, because it's a partnership, and what affects one person affects the other person. That's
Thank you. And I also just want to remind everybody that um, while we can say that, and there are wonderful comments about people who are managing this really well, um, and they've regained some trust through this recognition. I'm sure that there are other people who are just at their wits' end and feeling like, so does this make me, am I a bad caregiver because I can't get to that place where I can just accept everything? And it doesn't make you a bad caregiver. I think that everybody manages things differently. Every person we're caring for is more or less challenging to be with. Not everybody is cut out to be a caregiver. I think that what's so important for us, whether or not our loved one has anosognosia, is to also make sure that we are keeping track of, like, how am I managing this? And if I find that I am constantly at my wit's end, whether it's anosognosia or not, if I am constantly at my wit's end and I don't like the person very much anymore and I cannot stand the way this relationship is going, it is absolutely important that you find some help, you get some support, and you figure out how do you be with the person, how do you get other people in to help so that you maybe spend less time with the person. And I know that that's easier said than done, but I just don't want anybody to leave this call today and say, that's it, I'm a failure. Nobody's a failure if they're having difficulty with this, because it is so, so hard.
it is so hard, Allison. You're absolutely right. And boy, I wish that I could say, here, hand a piece of paper, this is what you need to do, this is the answer. But you know what? It's so complex. For each person, it's different. Um, Yes, and these comments that are coming up are so true. We can't bring the person in if it can't bring the person into your reality. Don't keep trying to do it, because you're only going to get frustrated. And so you've got to come up with a different way to make it work today. It may not work tomorrow, but it might work today. I know that we're getting really close to the end of time here, and there's so many good comments. If we can continue the conversation some other time, that would be great. If there's anybody who would like to work with us in further exploring this very interesting topic, you're welcome to join us. We are about to delve into doing some caring conversations with individuals with anosognosia and care partners about what is the best care partner relationship to support people, both sides of that partnership. So I think that should be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I just, last couple of comments. I liked what Shoshana said. She has to jump, but she says the most important, I call anosognosia, the most important thing almost no one seems to be talking about.
Mhm.
And I agree with that. And Catherine, who asks, is explaining the same as reasoning? Anybody have any thoughts about that?
When Vanessa says, I'd say don't bother. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And Vanessa, you're making me laugh. Okay. Um, I think that I think it's just two parts of the same, right? It's a explaining versus reasoning. You can't reason with a person who is incapable of reasoning, right? Like you can't be logical with a person who's incapable of logic. And explaining something to somebody often can start to feel like you're talking down to them, like it's a bit condescending. Let me tell you how the world works. So I liked some of the comments that I saw from people who ask their loved one to help them. Hey, I don't really get this. Can you explain it to me? And it kind of flip things around a bit, because one of the things that we want, so it's so important, is to ensure that the people that we are supporting still feel good about themselves and still feel needed and still feel like they matter. So
Part of the
I,
conversation, and part of the conversation,
yeah.
it seems to me, as we've talked about this, one of the important things for care partners, the care partners that I've talked to, um, take this on as 100% responsibility. And I'm thinking if you can share that support with the individual who is experiencing the symptom, perhaps it would be easier to do that because you've probably shared challenges with that person all your life, and it doesn't always have to all fall on your plate now.
Janice, the question for people who would like to consider being part of further discussions, may I share your email in the chat? Is that the best way for them to reach out, or?
Mhm. And you can go to the Dementia Action Alliance website, daanow.org, and you can actually sign up for these caring conversations, or you can certainly email me, and I will make that connection.
And what is your email address? I'll just type it in now.
Janice_Bays, Bays, at hotmail.com.
Okay. And then I did share earlier the link to the Pathways guide, which
Yes.
seems amazing. And we will go ahead and call it a day. That was a lot of stuff. I learned a lot that I wish I had known in a previous lifetime. Janice, thank you so, so much for your hard work. Thank you, everybody. I know that it was difficult. We had some issues with the audio, and I recognize that that was challenging for people. But boy, people hopped to it and were sharing how they were able to crank up their own volume or use closed captioning. And I will, again, take those transcripts and copy them to the bottom of the email that I send out in case anybody wants to read them. So that is it for today, friends. I typed in earlier in the chat the link to our next session, Dr. Natalie Edmonds, the Dementia Care Blazer, whom we adore. And I will also pop that in again right now. And I will share all of that in my follow-up email as well. And no, we do not have continuing education credits for our sessions. Sorry about that, Anne. There possibly there is a way, right? When I worked at the University of Washington, we had continuing education credits through the UW, but I don't have an academic affiliation, but it's something that I'm exploring. So hopefully we will be able to get that in the future. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you again. Take good care.
Thank you.
Okay,
Goodbye.
bye-bye.